Lord Vader now with his dark side clones compared to Lord Vader when he first released and the playfully dubbed term of Lord Failure. Did CG hit the mark quite right? And what are they going to do going forward? Like many in the game now, I am a proud owner of a full Relic 9 squad of Darkside clones with Lord Vader. It has been a long time waiting for something like this to happen, and we have seen it sort of take some sort of precedence now inside of Squad Arena and stuff like that. Look around me, I've got several people in my Squad Arena, just in the top 10, that are already rocking full Darkside clone squads with their Lord Vader. Wouldn't have thought, wouldn't have thought going back a couple of years that Lord Vader would be making its prevalence inside of competitive PvP zones. But the problem I'm having right now is trying to reconcile what is CG going to do. The part that I really want to draw attention to is this post that we had with the release of the first Darkside clone trooper that we got, Appo. Okay, Appo is actually a pretty strong unit. He released and sort of gave us a glimpse of what we're supposed to be getting for Lord Vader. But this in particular, Coruscant Commander, that unique effect that Appo gets to prevent him from being killed unless the enemy has a galactic legend on the team. The reason for that was supposed to be, and I quote, to make Lord Vader extremely hard to counter if you're bringing in anything less than a galactic legend, as you need to defeat Lord Vader before Appo can be defeated. Before they buffed Scorch, we already saw a number of teams that could beat Lord Vader. I'm talking about, your Mon Mothma teams, even Imperial Trooper teams, Bo-Katan teams. Sure, some of that was to do with bugs and stuff like this that CG did ultimately fix. My concern is what is the data telling us now? Have those fixes done enough to course correct, and should we be happy about it? I've just jumped over to swigger.gg to see the latest results from GAC, in particular facing off against Lord Vader and all of his dark side clone allies. What are the win rates that we are looking at right now? What's the likelihood that people can beat this guy without a galactic legend and they've got those Omicrons active? It's not great. 19.33% is the win rate right now for non-GL teams, non-cleanups against Lord Vader and the full Darkside clones. Bo-Katan Mandalore, who was beating him, largely thanks to that damage reflection bug that was going on, is now down to 3% out of 31 battles. Granted, this isn't a lot of battles, but 3% is a pretty good indicator that it's not a particularly good counter. Now, I'm only exclusively right now looking at Kyber 1 matches, because it tends to ensure, for the most part, that modding is going to be on point and that sort of thing, and they're not going to have, missed anything off, and they'll play the battle relatively sensibly as well. This is a pretty good indicator right now that at least the Bo-Katan side of things is fixed. What's surprising to me is that Mon Mothma is still able to actually beat Lord Vader. 25% of the time, not great, granted, okay? Not something that I would hang a GAC on, right? But 25% of the time, and this is the one that was more specifically targeted as trying to lock down that counter, right? This relies on TM looping. So the whole idea of this counter is to essentially cleanse the dots at the start of the battle and then TM loop the entire team, and Lord Vader never takes a turn again. The changes that we had to Scorch in the recent update gave him an undispellable dot for 2 turns that kind of prevented immediate turn meter control teams, that and stuff like Imperial Troopers. Now we can see currently that there is a BAM team beating him with Sana, but that is probably largely due to the fact that the BAM Sana squad relies on a very, very powerful Sana Datacron at the moment, with this level 6 Smuggler giving the evasions, but more importantly, the level 9 of Sana giving massive boosts to stats, especially if you gain turn meter generation at any point, because it just does ridiculous damage. And because you've got Han and Chewie at the start, passing yourself additional turn meter with shoots first, it is probably able to get the ball rolling relatively securely. Now, if I also add in the defending Omicrons, all right, over here, so the Omicron on Scorch basically completely nullifies the abilities of Bo-Katan Mandalore. I imagine all that additional bulk is a real big issue, has a big impact on whether Mon Mothma can chew through, probably again thanks to Scorch. Lots more additional bulk on that guy probably makes it harder to get that train rolling. Doesn't really impact the BAM counter much at all, still around 40% over here. There's a little bit of differences sometimes depending on if you're using armor, it seems, 11% on bow. But the real surprising ones is over here. Seer Malicos having a pretty decent chance of win rates versus Lord Vader. Probably if you've got high modded, high relict sort of Starkiller Malicos just doing enough AoE damage to take out the ads. Very surprising, but, well, not very surprising, but surprising enough to me to be the most reliable non-GL counter at the moment by the looks of things. We've seen the likes of Bane somehow beat this team. I'm very surprised that the Bane team is actually working here. Perhaps this is a one-off, who knows? But that is only a single battle so far. Now, we have heard that Queen Amidala can supposedly win, but it doesn't look likely, apparently, in Kyber 1 GAC with everything going at the moment. It looks like it's kind of been knocked off its perch just a little. To me, this looks like roughly where I would expect it to be. CG was saying that they wanted to make this very difficult to actually take down without taking in a Galactic Legend, and I would say best case scenario 44-ish% win ratio against with a meta Datacron without using a GL is probably about right. But what's curious is I haven't actually seen what's the win rates like if you've got an attacking GL, and more importantly, if you don't have the Appocron, how does that change? I'm not sure if there's much information here to show if we can exclude the Appocron and see how that influences things. Obviously, win rate's much higher, about a 40% chance with bow, but I'd be curious to know what Datacron instead they were using. I mean, that's still showing that Datacron, so I don't know why, not sure why it's still gathering that information. Now you can see a lot of these wins are still against non-relict characters, so let's just adjust this. All right, 22%, so bow drops off a rock over here. Still largely all of them using Appocrons. I'm not sure, maybe there just isn't any information without it. So it doesn't look particularly great when you've got actual relic clones going on there. But how about if they do have an attacking GL? If they do have an attacking GL, win rates are far more reasonable to what you would expect for a new meta team. Looks like Leia is your go-to counter over here, probably because you'll be able to just ignore taunts and just shoot out Appo at the start of battle with Drogon. I say at the start of battle, near enough to the start of battle with Drogon. Similarly, Slacker, I imagine, is able to ramp up enough offense and enough AoE damage over there to deal with the team. So Slacker and Leia looking like pretty solid counters. Lord Vader, Bane, decent enough counters, but I'm not sure if you want to be doing that when you could instead place this team on defense. JML, awful, absolutely terrible banners over here. Looks like Leia has actually got improved odds if you throw in C-Rex and Chupio. Probably Chupio passing a bunch of additional tenacity to the team is probably what's helping out there. And yeah, we've still got, this is a weird JML team here. In a BAM Sana team, it's got great win rates though. That's not a bad shout. It's probably because Efflux at the start is like an AoE ability block. That can help. It will pass him some TM, so I'm not sure if that's going to interact particularly well with the Sanacron, but that's really interesting to see. Sana JML, maybe that's going to be a staple counter whilst that Datacron is around. Overall though, I'd say this is probably in the right place. If CG does keep on addressing these different counters and trying to slowly but surely chip away and add and cut and divide and multiply all the different counter permutations that we see against Lord Vader, what are we going to end up with if they keep on closing gaps in counters like this? Now, I'm not sure how I want to react to this in general, because it's like on the one hand, I want there to be counters to teams. I don't ever want to be in a position where a team is unbeatable on defense, but I also am very sternly in favor of Galactic Legends mattering. A Galactic Legend should bring massive value to an account. That's why we spend so many resources trying to get it. Look at GL Ahsoka Tano. 3 Relic 9s to get that unlock. A bunch of additional brand new marquees. What did we do? 5 or 6 marquees for her? That was a very, very costly and timely unlock for a lot of people. And she's come and basically done next to nothing, let's be honest. She hasn't done anything drastic to the meta. And in fact, Ezra, the key player in her team, realistically speaking, often gets pulled off and thrown in a Rey team. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us is that, you know, either CG is not designing these kits quite right, or they're not balancing their GLs appropriately, because the star of the show is a conquest unit and not the actual GL itself. So, I'm confused. I don't want them to buff Lord Vader out of this world. I don't necessarily want to knock off every single non-GL counter. I would like us to find a middle ground where it's possible for us to chip away at a team. So instead of making it completely unbeatable if you don't have a particular GL, you could potentially kill 1 or 2 units from that team, and then you can clean up with something else. I don't want something to hold in perpetuity, but I want to make that value there so that it exists, you know, so that if you've got that GL, you've put in the work, you've grounded your way through all that farms, you've put all the relic levels, you've put the good mods on, you've got the brand new Datacron, you've got all this good business, that should be rewarded by having some holds in GAC, essentially, unless your opponent has gone complete offense and taken everything to just steam through your defensive setup. But I'm curious to know what you guys feel about this. Looking back at Lord Vader, how he was when he first released with Maul, it was a bit of a disappointment. Probably about on par with GL Ahsoka Tano, really. Especially if you take away Ezra from her. She's nothing. She's nothing special. You know what I mean? What do you guys think? Does Lord Vader need a buff? Is this the rebalancing that we need to do for all GLs? Answers on a postcard, please.